Hi, my name is Janet Molbeck. I'm the executive director of Interweave. We're a small nonprofit here in New Jersey working to support spirituality for daily living, an integrated spirituality that nurtures wellness, the common good, and your spiritual life. Each year, we have a telethon. It's a way of keeping that work going. If you didn't have a chance to tune in, we hope you'll take advantage of this second opportunity. We want to thank you for supporting our work with 12 wonderful conversations about nurturing hope through prayer and practice, art and action. Thank you in advance for being there for Interweave and for the spiritual life in raising up the importance of hope. What we say here at Interweave is, let hope live in you. Thank you. Happy holiday. Hello, and welcome to the 12th hour of our telethon. It's been a long day, and what a rich and wonderful way to end our conversations about nurturing hope. Thank you all for being here. I want to introduce, and gentlemen, forgive me for reading, but I don't want to, I'm tired. It's been a long day, and I don't want to do a disservice to both of your quite impressive biographies. Um, we have with us Jon Pahl, who is an author, a historian, teacher, and community activist. He has taught in many places, among them Temple and Princeton Universities and the Lutheran Seminary. Jon's biography, A Life of Hizmet, is what we're going to talk about in a moment. It is a book that has been critically acclaimed, and rightly so, I might add. Jon continues to explore these subjects of religion, dialogue, and peacemaking through his writing, through his research, and through his advocacy work. And so welcome, Jon. And also our other prestigious guest is Osman Oztoprak, who is the managing director of the Alliance for Shared Values, which acts as an umbrella organization for interfaith initiatives across the United States and provides really amazing resources and support for the Hizmet movement, which we will learn more about in the course of our conversation. If you don't already know about it, you need to, and we hope you will. Osman is an accomplished educational leader and an important community organizer with a deep commitment to fostering intercultural dialogue. I want to hold up the book, Jon, so that people see it.
Better you than me.
Well, it's a wonderful book. I really highly recommend it.
Thank you.
And it is, it feels like, Jon, a work of love to me. And you're a historian and a researcher, and I told you we're going to talk about the book, the story of Fethullah Gülen, A Life of Hizmet. But I love this caption underneath. Why a Muslim scholar in Pennsylvania matters to the world. And that's kind of the subject of the conversation we're going to have tonight. I want to know about, I want to get into the book, but I want to get into the making of the book and the life story that you're telling us in this book. So, Jon, welcome. I'm going to let you begin with your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Janet. Great to be with you. And since Scott Alexander challenged us all, I have to say that I have already scanned the QR code and made a contribution
Thank you, John.
to interweave this evening. Like Scott said, I'm not Elon Musk, so you can't count on a contribution in that caliber, but I'm happy to support the work and delighted by the opportunity to be here to talk about the project that was the most significant scholarly project of my life, and just a truly great joy to be able to put together. Um, so Fethullah Gülen is a peacemaker in the tradition of Gandhi, as I see him. Although, Gandhi had to fight against an empire, Fethullah Gülen didn't fight against anybody. He was for Muspet Hareket in Turkish, positive action, non-reactive positive action, selfless love, as Scott Alexander indicated, and to be able to write the life story of an individual with that kind of motivation and with the results that he generated was truly an extraordinary project. It was a collaborative work. Osman was a part of it. Elpis Landawan was a part of it. M&A Unal contributed. I mean, Amit Korjan and so many people read the manuscript. My colleague David Grafton, who's now at the Hartford University of Peace, just folks all over the country really recognized the significance of this individual on a global scale and came together to help me with my many failings and frailties and shortcomings to be able to tell this story, which really does center on love. Yesterday, I came home from St. Louis, where the night before I was at a memorial service for Mr. Gülen. And after my talk, the hosts of the evening offered people an opportunity to scan a QR code, not to make a donation, but to put up a one-word summation of the life of Fethullah Gülen. And then this created this word cloud on the screen. And, all kinds of things. Dialogue, hoshkoru, uspet harakat, oak, because I described Fethullah Gülen as an oak tree in his life. But the word that emerged right at the heart and in the biggest capital letters was love.
Wow.
And that seems to me appropriate, for the 250 people or so who were there in St. Louis with me, and the hundreds, thousands, millions around the globe who have caught a glimpse of the inspiration that this man has brought to the world.
You discovered this man not in person,
Yeah.
but through your research, which is clearly a gift. I mean,
Mm,
and I get the feeling, I mean, well, you can see meticulously uncovering. We're talking about the art of uncovering things in the course of the day, meticulously uncovering and discovering a life. You met him through the research, and then you met him in person. Um, so you wrote this story of this life that you uncovered, and then you met the person. Did you find that the person that you had discovered in your research work was the same man that you met in Pennsylvania?
yeah, it's funny. I consciously chose not to meet with him while I was doing the research in the paper trail. And I did interviews with friends of his, with his students and others, and with critics because I wanted to maintain relative objectivity. As a historian, I studied at the University of Chicago. I'm trained in the hermeneutics of suspicion. I'm always looking for, okay, where are the problems? Where's the troubling side of this story? And then once I had a complete manuscript done, a complete narrative, I said, okay, now it's time. And Osman and Alp and others helped arrange the a meeting with him at the retreat center in Sailorsburg. And I have to admit, the night before that meeting, I did not sleep very well because of concern about exactly the question you mentioned, Janet. What if he, as a person, does not match what I discovered in the paper trail, which was the story of a peace builder? But I'm happy to say he did. Um, I found him warm, generous, gentle, thoughtful, deeply informed, and very patient with my questions. And I've said this in some settings. It's not the kind of thing a historian often confesses, but I came away with the feeling that he loved me. And by the end of it, I could say that I loved him too. So it really was pretty extraordinary. We had two 90-minute interviews, and they gave me some great feedback. I asked very focused, specific questions about things. One of them was about a song. When I interviewed his sister Nuriyat outside of Izmir, Nuriyat said, yeah, Fethullah and I used to sing this song of the foods together. And then she sang it for me. And, it's this childhood song about vegetables and potatoes and, bread and, just all of the foods, this childhood song. And she said, yeah, Fethullah and I used to sing that together. And then she went on to say that their brother, Sibgatullah, would try to sing along too, but he didn't really harmonize very well with them. And so I wanted to ask him whether he remembered this same detail, and those are the kind of questions I sought to ask. And not only did he remember it, he recited the song for me too. And, Nuriyat cried as she sang it, remembering him and, of course, remembering his exile in Pennsylvania. So, those are the kind of things where you go, okay, there's a truth here in the detail. Stephen Jay Gould, the great paleontologist, even though he was an atheist himself, in his book Wonderful Life, The Burgess Shale and the Nature of History, said, God dwells among the details.
Mm.
And I think that's absolutely true. And when you pay attention to the details of Mr. Gülen's life, you truly do discover this thoughtful, generous, inspiring, caring, compassionate, engaged individual. And it was a privilege to be able to tell his life story.
Well, thank you for that rich response. I'm not forgetting you're there, Osman. We're coming back to you, but I want to just finish following this train of thought with Jon, and then I want to talk to you about Hizmet. And Jon, I want to say thank you for following your craft
Mm,
so honorably because you gave Mr. Gulan and us a gift by doing it thusly because you said that the historian, the researcher must be suspicious.
yeah.
And indeed, even if I just Wikipedia Mr. Gulan's biography, you it's nothing specific. It's something like a little gray here and there that alludes to a question. A question of is this person real? What is the da 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 whatever it is? I won't even honor it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that because you followed the road of science, as it were, it helps us to say to people, look and see. This life was real and true and noble. and deserves to be noted and remembered. And I think you helped deeply and powerfully for
Mm.
us to be able to witness to that. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Janet. One of the things that really motivated me near the end of the book, as I was putting it together, was the fact that he has been slandered. Yeah, if you do a Wikipedia search on his name, you're going to find the Turkish government's propaganda about him because they have the financial resources to, control the algorithms and to put forward these ridiculous big lies about who he was. And the only antidote to that is the truth itself. That is to get into the details and to tell the story accurately and fairly. And that's what I sought to do. And again, God dwells among the details. And once you get into the details of his life, you discover that he was somebody who taught people to embrace science and spirituality, to hold religion and science together, overcoming the most significant warfare of the modern world. I mean, that conflict has led us to the brink of an uninhabitable earth, as David Wallace Wells put it. And so overcoming that conflict between religion and science is really crucial. And it's one of the key legacies that he puts forward. He also, has taught us that our spiritual traditions, far from being part of the problem, are the solution to the violence that besets us in so many systemic ways around the globe. He was a faithful practitioner of the five pillars of Islam, and he taught how they are nonviolent practices: prayer, pilgrimage, fasting, charity, confession. All of these are deeply nonviolent practices that point us toward a collaborative future, engaged empathy. I mean, the man cried about the suffering of the world, like the Buddha, recognizing that life is suffering, but also that there's a way beyond suffering. And so that engaged empathy, finding paths beyond the suffering through principled pluralism, knowing who he was as a Muslim, and then because he had that conviction, able to reach out to others and work with anyone on projects to benefit humanity. And finally, the model of principled capitalism or social enterprise that was at the very heart of the DNA of Hizmet, this model of istishara, or mutual consultation, where everyone's voice mattered. And this is my transition to Osman, who is living this out in these
Living this out.
various
Absolutely.
consultations that he has with individuals all over the globe, trying to live out a life of service, a life of Hizmet, following in the example of Hoja Effendi, and then even more following in the example of the prophets, peace be upon them. Over
So
to you,
Osman,
Usman.
tell us about Hizmet so that we might. This is this legacy. We're going to be talking about legacy work, and you are one of the holders of the legacy that we are talking about and remembering and honoring. And can you explain to us about what? Not everyone knows or imagine that someone's listening who has no idea what Hizmet is. What is this thing, Hizmet?
First, hi John, how are you? It's good to see you again. And Janet, thank you for inviting me. As we say, for some of the, I can take them as a prayer that I can live up to what you said about Hizmet and what we are supposed to do. And for some part, we say Astaghfirullah in Islamic tradition, meaning that I seek refuge from God for attributing myself to these high lofty ideals because I am such a humble human being. So, but with the God's uh, help, that I may be able to attain those qualities. Uh, so, yeah, Hizmet is like a
Say this, Osman.
yeah.
You are truly a humble human being. When you say that, and John will back me up on this because I know that many times you have actually been in the background, and you're at the heart of a story that's this drama that's unfolding, and you're right there. And not a word is said. You are just there being the servant of God and of the work and of the community. So let
Yeah,
it be said.
thank you. Thank you. So, as like I should tell to talk about Hizmet is the meaning like a service, means service in Turkish. So the basic idea is to serve fellow human beings. Uh, and as Mr. Gülen, we call him Hoca Efendi, as a respected teacher, the movement that he inspired aimed at serving fellow human beings in three main avenues. One is engaging in interfaith dialogue, and the second is humanitarian aid, and the third is through education by uplifting individuals in remote parts of the world with those underprivileged students, helping them, bringing them the education so they can just live up to their potentials. So that's basically what Hizmet means. And since early years of Mr. Gülen, people around him support these initiatives in different ways. If there is a businessman who has means to support these initiatives, he put his money into these projects. And if there are individuals like young, aspiring individuals who wants to contribute, like the lives of fellow human beings, they can become teachers in those schools around the world. And those like people who carry these relief aids to these like different parts of the world. So this is like a Hizmet in short sentence. But I got to know I got to know Hizmet before I knew Hoca Efendi, Mr. Gülen. And this is true for many people, and that it tells a lot about the movement. It's not about the person, it is about his message, his mission, his work. So when I was in high school, I met with the college students. I was in high school, they were in college students. In a time when Turkish high schools were very politicized. If you can think of the 1980s during the Cold War, and I grew up in Turkey, I was born and raised in Turkey. So it was like the Iron Wall, the communist Russia, Soviets, and the Western Bloc, and just the Islamic world. A lot of things are just simply boiling the Turkish society, and you can see all these like the political ideologies extending into the high schools and kind of dividing students into different ideological camps. And I had friends from all the different camps, and I kind of like spent time with each one of them. What I was very disappointed of seeing everybody kind of like against somebody. A group is against all other groups. This group against, and I was saying, isn't there a group of people, a group that do not need to be against anybody, just be and do good things. Until I met these young college students, I was literally like disappointed and lost my hope, because there was always fights on the streets, high school kids getting into fights, and college students as well. So when I met with these guys, I said like there's something strange about them. I did not hear a negative word towards anybody else. They are not against anybody. They are for something.
Mm.
So I got to like spend time with them. I started living with them in my college years, and later on in my later high school years, I said there must be a great influence behind them. So then I learned about Mr. Gülen, his sermons, his sermons on the mosques, and his conferences, and his messages, and his books, always calling for like a peace. So that's what inspired me to continue my life in Hizmet and be part of this good work. So similarly, I knew Hizmet. I got to know Hizmet before I knew Mr. Gülen, and that is true for a lot of maybe businessmen as well. Like they did not know Mr. Gülen, his message, his book, but they would be supporting the school project in Africa. And they said, like, who inspires these young people to teach in Africa in this remote, like a village? And then they will later on finds out that the guy behind all these things is Gülen, because it was never about him. If I was in St. Louis during the memorial program, John, and if I was to enter a word for Mr. Gülen, I would put, of course, love, but humility as well. Like he did not see himself in any above anybody else. Like he saw himself as the one of the mere members of the Hizmet, just simply following everybody from behind, trying to follow. He would use these words, try to be with the people of good work. So he would use his words to describe his role in this Hizmet that he inspired. So that's
Wow. That, when you were talking, I couldn't help but thinking we hope, those of us who are of a Christian persuasion to think that people would say they will know they are Christian by their love. And it sounds like that kind of just up the power of witness in a testament, not of who and how the community behaves. It is what spreads this this message that is so powerful, which is maybe the answer to why this Muslim scholar needs to be remembered and matters. John, it sounds to me when I read and not just read your work, but experience the community as I, on occasion, have the privilege of doing. It feels like there's kind of a design, a beautiful design to the world he's working to help us or calling us to create. And I wondered if you saw that in your research and then in your conversations with him.
Sure. I mean, first of all, it was just an extraordinary project because this movement grew so rapidly, right? I mean, I've studied lots of historical movements that have taken centuries to develop, millennia to develop in some cases. And, here as I began to research the life of Mr. Gülen and the Hizmet community, I discovered, from beginnings in the 1960s in Izmir to now this global movement, with schools in 130, 140, how nobody really knows how many different countries, right? I mean, that's amazing.
How
And
how many
100, I mean, the number I heard, Osman, was about 135 different countries.
wow.
yes.
And, I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to a lot. I mean, I got asked last night, okay, what's going to happen to Hizmet,
Yes.
now that Mr. Gülen is gone?
Mhm.
And I got asked the same question a few years ago in Tanzania. So they have schools in Tanzania and Dar es Salaam, and other places. They just opened a new one, I learned last night, in fact. And my answer was I'm sitting at a dinner on the shores with the ocean crashing behind us, and I'm sitting with the board of directors of the Hizmet Relief Agency in Dar es Salaam. And there were 26 of us, and there were 4 Turks and 22 Tanzanians, engineers, bankers, doctors, taxi drivers. I mean, people from all walks of life who recognized the value of this work and who had come together to be a part of this. And so I was asked, who's the next Fethullah Gülen? What's going to happen when he is gone? And my answer then was, and I shared this story last night too, is that, well, because of the emphasis on growing local leadership and on, taking root, wherever the community happens to be, and trusting people and building them up, and letting them develop their skills. I said, could very well be, the next Fethullah Gülen is a Tanzanian woman.
Beautiful.
Honestly,
Honest.
that is entirely possible. So finally, yeah, Mr. Gülen taught peace, and Hizmet through service grows peace. And that peace growing is, it's nothing utopian. We tend to think about peace as, kumbaya, everybody gets along and all of that. No, peace isn't anything utopian at all. It is what we count on in everyday life, in trusting relationships where our words matter, and where, we can cooperate and work together. And that's generated through ordinary, everyday activities of, talking with one another, of questioning one another, of laughing together and smiling at each other. And so, what I discovered is that this extraordinary social movement that has grown so dramatically did so through relatively undramatic means, through very ordinary, humble means. And to me, that is worth shouting from the mountaintops. Is that the simple things we do can make extraordinary differences in the world. So, by way of example, I'll tell the story about how I became familiar with Hizmet. I was invited in 2006 to an iftar dinner by the Philadelphia Dialogue Forum held at the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Philadelphia. I was living in Philadelphia at the time, teaching at the seminary where I still teach. And it was I believe in the fall, and it was a lousy night. It was raining, it was cold, it was miserable. If you know parking in downtown Philadelphia, it's a nightmare under the best circumstances in a rainstorm, so I almost didn't go. And I can't imagine how different my life would be if I had not gone to that event. It was nothing dramatic. It was an iftar dinner. It was a meal, where we gathered together, and yet, boom, in that moment, my life was transformed. And out of that simple offering of a meal shared among friends has come this extraordinary beauty, this awareness of goodness, and this encounter with truth, for which I'll be forever grateful.
I love that description of the invitation to the iftar dinner. I have had, I mean, it is an oft-told tale. It's my tale as well, and I've had the privilege of sitting at Osman's table for iftar.
Yep.
Um,
And
we've
it's a
been
meal,
it's a meal.
the most
It's
basic need of humans.
exactly. We started out the day talking about with Dilek, talking about hospitality. That's how we began our day. Um, so I think here's the thing. If it was if it was a trick, if it was a propaganda to garner support, it would have been long over. The thing is, I, if one dinner led to another dinner, led to another dinner, and you almost want to pinch yourself because you can't fake this. Where you're like, oh, we're really friends. We're really spiritual friends. We're really serious. These people are serious about interfaith work, about ecumenism. This is the real deal, which is why we come back again and again, because the spirit of collaboration, of sisterhood and brotherhood, of a, a communal meal that is truly broken and shared, that is, I'll use the word sacramental
Uh-huh.
nature. You cannot, so it is transformative. It is totally transformative. And yeah, so I thank you for sharing that story. And um for some reason I'm going to use the word provocative. I do think there is a genius in in the hospitality of Hizmet, in the hospitality of the movement, that because love is contagious, and it is, and the sense of safety that you mentioned, the basic, you know, needs that we all have, we sense. You know, once you enter into the community and experience, the superstition evaporates because you know you're safe. You know you're safe.
Yeah, and that hospitality, that sense of community is an antidote to violence. I mean, it is the alternative. I would often get asked when I was traveling to Turkey by Americans, "Do you feel safe? Do you feel safe in Turkey?" And I would say to them, statistically speaking, in Turkey, I'm a whole lot safer than I would be in the United States, you know? And so there's a tendency to project onto others the violence that we live with. Now, Turkey has unfortunately become an unsafe place for people of Hizmet in recent years, and that's truly a human tragedy that more people ought to be speaking up about. But within the community, there is the antidote to violence. I mean, there is this counter, this alternative that generates what Mr. Gülen called peace islands.
Right.
And so, you know, find those islands, those places, and then hope to build them together to connect them. So, you know, interweave religions for peace, the Fellowship of Reconciliation, Pax Christi, you know, on and on and on and on and on. It's the most significant story in the history of religions in the 20th century and early 21st century that nobody knows about. That is, the emergence of interreligious peace growing is truly incredible. The problem is, of course, we have all of these separate silos, you know, denominational or traditional or however they happen to be defined. And so we have to find ways to find each other. That is to build a community across difference. And that's again where Mr. Gülen's example and the example of Hizmet are so helpful to us, because they really do seek to reach out and include and invite and engage.
Absolutely. I just, you know, when we started out talking earlier about, you know, if you Wikipedia this and the suspicion, but I, in the course of working on another project, just Googled, and I invite anybody to do it right now. Google interfaith leader. Google, though, put in those kinds of words, and Mr. Gulen immediately surfaces with Desmond Tutu,
Yeah.
with Pope Francis, with this is the the arena in which he was, is, and is entitled to be named. I want to go back to you, Osman, for one moment, because um, humble Osman, it's you knew the man. You knew the man personally. You know, it's so that is to say, when I say the names in which his he's mentioned in the same breath, you knew a saint, most likely.
What did
So,
I am privileged? Yes, yes, I knew. I got to know him for my work. I worked for the organization for the last 12 years. We managed his media relations. So we sat down with him on almost every interview that he has given, as well as John's interview. During the interview, we were able to translate. So I was able to see him as a person as well. Like sometimes I even shared with my friends, when I look at Mr. Gülen, I see him, as you mentioned, as a saint, a godly man who just simply devoted to religion, prayer, connecting with his God, and then helping people connect as well. But at the same time, I saw a person, a human being, and his late ages. I saw him like a kind of like a soft-hearted old man with his actions. Like if he didn't get married, so if he would be a very sweet granddad. So I saw him in his actions like a very sweet, soft-speaking person. So yeah, I was privileged to be with him. One of the things that I wanted to add is as you were talking, is that when you had like a Google searches, other things, it all depends on the person's, like whoever is writing those things, their angle. So he is a transformative person. He transformed the lives of many people, millions of people around the world. Not only Turks, not only Muslims, a lot of non-Muslims, non-Turks as well. That is like was the breadth of his message. And every time he spoke, I don't think he just simply targeted his like a Turkish origin, like our brothers and sisters. He was speaking to the world.
Right.
And he left a legacy. But some people just focusing on small things and measuring his like a huge message with their small perspective, like certain politics, certain dynamics, certain time period, certain parts of the recent history. So when you look at those things, like it doesn't correlate, but in their perspective, it correlates with their own study, research, I should say. But I think when you look at his life, what he left is he relentlessly called people for dialogue, for peace, positive action. Even he said in the face of adversity, and John just simply talked about lost, like since 2016, hundreds of thousands of Hizmet people associated with the Hizmet movement been targeted in Turkey by Erdogan. But in a lot of people's relatives, sisters, brothers, whole families been to jail, thrown into jail, still spending time in jail, and their wealth has been confiscated. I can, if anybody wants to measure his message, look at how many people have been simply doing the good things they have been taught to do. They've been talked about. They're still opening schools. They are still providing aids. They are still providing financial scholarship to the needy students. So the majority of the people have been targeted. Families are torn apart, but still they are still opening schools. So this is the true message. It's not only like it is not a message of the good day. It's just a message of all seasons. And that is I guess, the true message. So we have to. It's gonna live forever, to me, because like when I look at the what's happening around the world, all the schools, all the new people, it gives me hope. Like the concept of it gives me hope that the message of love, tolerance, understanding, respect is going to continue. And every time at an interview, he was asked, what are you expecting of, like, what do you see as the outcome, the ultimate outcome of this dialogue? What are you doing? Like, there are a lot of wars, there are a lot of conflict. He said, we have to leave our next generation at least not like a fully like a peaceful world, but at least by engaging in dialogue, we can resolve some of the conflicts. We can create understanding, so that next generation will do not have to talk about these like like a historical conflicts, like this disunity, and people just pitting people one against one another. So that was his message. And one person even like asked me, "What is his ultimate? Like, what was the question, John? I guess you heard this many times. What is his ultimate goal? What is his secret agenda?"
Yeah,
I
right.
I said, and this question was asked me, but like about 6 months before he passed away. I said, a person of like 86 years old, if you have not figured out his secret agenda,
Exactly.
he is a miserable strategist, or he doesn't have one.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, and dealing with the oppression, Osman, you're absolutely right. It's been ruthless and brutal, and oh man, so many people have been put through so much. Families separated, individuals, thrown into jail. 2 nights ago, I sat next to an individual in St. Louis who was a former colonel in the Turkish army, who was a composer. I mean, a brilliant composer. He played for me. There's a march that he composed and performed with the Turkish military band, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was like something out of
Oh,
kind of a combination of Bach and John Philip Sousa with Turkish traditional Ottoman music woven throughout it as well. I mean, it was truly extraordinary. And this guy, had to flee his country because of these stupid big lies that have circulated. But for Mr. Gulen, this was nothing new. It was throughout his life. Between 1980 and 1986, the government pulled his preaching license, trying to kill Hizmet, trying to shut it down, right? Um, and the irony is, what happened is it grew because he, by this point, had people, who knew what was going on. And if the police raid was coming, they would call and he would, go down the back steps, get in the car and go to Erzurum or wherever, not to do anything nefarious or to, pursue some strategy, but he would go to talk with people about dialogue and about building schools. And he grew trust in Erzurum and Bursa and Izmir. And what's happening now is the same thing on a global scale because people have had to leave the narrow confines of this national context and now are in Australia and Belgium and Germany and Canada and the United States and Brazil, um, doing the same thing again and growing peace. And so the challenge for us is to build these bridges between groups like Interweave and Hizmet and Religions for Peace and the Fellowship of Reconciliation, Pax Christi, and on and on and on, to really work together and foster that trust across traditions, across groups, in order to build the capacity to generate the kind of world for which we and our traditions at their depth hope, and not only hope, but promise. And to me, that, is an important word here, too, is that we have this promise. It's not optimism, as Scott put it.
exactly.
It is hope founded on a promise. Aristotle called hope a waking dream. And I love that conjunction of two things that are often considered paradoxical, right? Okay, waking, dream. Well, this is Dr. King, right? This vision of a future that builds the capacities of goodness, truth, and beauty.
I have a sense because you of course, being the wonderful people you are, you moved into the closing conversation about hope because somehow this man, this life, we had you just went to a memorial, John. I've been to a memorial. It- The fact that people are so impacted by this loss, I mean, I do have the sense that people are knowing that this is something precious
Yeah.
that we must not lose, must be remembered and must be cherished so that it will live on. And the whole day, our theme has been nurturing hope. How can we nurture hope as at a time where this country and the world feel at risk? And this life, this life of Hizmet, this life of Mr. Gulen and of the community feels like a model
Mhm.
for how do you do it? How do you move on with hope forward? And you might be asking somebody to go to dinner tonight. You might be inviting somebody into dialogue. It's um it's a beautiful design for love, for community, for service. And Osman and John, I want to thank you for holding the legacy for us, for sharing it with us. I have the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, he would never look at another faith or another person and say, I want you to be me. No, he rejoices in the other, sees it's a subject, beloved, beloved. He
Yeah.
sees that and he encourages us to see each other with that eye of the beloved.
Well said. Great.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Mhm.
So thank you, gentlemen. Deeply grateful for you coming and sharing your wisdom with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Janet, and thank you for the work that you're doing. May it bear good fruit.
Amen. And right back at you, brother.
All
Right back
right.
at you. I know that there's more research and more sharing to come.
Mhm.
So we look forward to continuing to learn from you,
Hope
John.
so. I'll be in South Jersey, I think, the third week of January, doing a talk. So I'll let you know
Let us know.
when that is happening.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have the dates yet, Osman. I think it's the 13th, 14th, 15th or 16th of January, something like that. But I'll let you know the details and would love to see you in
We
person, not just face
look,
to face, but in
look forward
person.
to it. Person
We'll
to
be in touch. We'll be in touch. Janet and I will be in touch.
blessings.
Okay.
Blessings.
Right.
Take care. Good night, John.
Bye.
Uh,
Good night. Great to be
Yep,
with you, Osman.
on you both.
good night, Janet. It's a great program. Wonderful. And I'm happy to be part of interview.
Yep.
We are so blessed by you, Osman, and by you, John.
Bye bye.